Hey everyone, I'm trying to connect with Rachel, Marie Paley.
Yes! Yes!
We did it!
At last!
Oh, I cannot believe it.
Wow! Sorry.
It's fine,
Okay.
internet. It happens, and I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I apologize to all the listeners because I know they've been very patient. So thank you, everybody. We were struggling to find icons and interconnections and requests and yeah.
Rachel, is this the first time you do a live session on Instagram?
No, it's not. But honestly, I've had these problems before, and it really is that case that if there isn't the request or if there isn't the icon, and yeah, it's just about finding the way, and we did.
We did it. That's what matters.
We did.
Amazing. Yes. So, well, I have so much to talk to you about, and I'm sure my audience is also curious about, how the brain works, and, when we're learning, how can we make it more effective. So, well, we can talk about it for hours, but let's be specific here.
Yep.
And, well, just first of all, I just really want to make sure you understand how grateful I am, for you to take your time and come here to talk to my audience. And also, first I wanted to start talking about, what's going on with the language learning all over the world, because here in Brazil, Rachel, we have a traditional system to teach English, which I understand is something that happens all over. And I really would love to hear from you your perspective about how language learning is treated around the world in traditional methods, and what is the idea that neurolanguage learning is bringing, this new perspective, and how this can be more effective with language learners.
I do think that, worldwide, we are shifting into new territories, because I do think people are fed up with the never-ending story of language learning. And, I call it the washing machine. I think we are tired of being in the washing machine. We go into the washing machine in September in the language school. We go round and round all year. We get shaken about. And then in June, July, we come out of the washing machine, but we're still in the same place. We're still on the same cycle. And I think, it's really that question of, as professionals in education of language, how can we be more effective? How can we be more efficient? But how can we adapt to the learners of today? Because the learners of today are not the learners of 100 years ago, when Mr. Berlitz started with his language learning schools. And, and I say Mr. Berlitz with great respect, because in that era, it was phenomenal and it was fantastic. But nowadays, I think it's about embracing all the knowledge we have and really adapting it to the 21st century and to the modern world. And we live in a globalized world. People need language, and we need it fast. And we have brains that are not attentive. We have brains that are all over the place. So how do we learn now with all the distractions that we have, with all the tools that we have everywhere? And how can we as professionals be much more effective, efficient, and get that learning process into a faster way?
Absolutely. I think this is so mind-blowing, because in some way I feel like so many areas are evolving in, technology, health. So many different areas are going to their next level, to their next step. But for some reason, education still struggles, with old systems. And in any area, it's kind of hard for people to kind of shift and understand that there is a new way of doing things. And it's fine. It's a transitional moment. It's acceptable. But I feel the urge,
really create
urge of, calling out, like, come on, we need to look at it. Like, there is something here that needs to be shifted. And how can we help this, work in a better and faster way? So I understand that neurolanguage learning is a kind of approach that helps us, to enlighten, there is like a light somewhere that, helps us see like, okay, there is something here that hasn't been spoken before, but there is room now for that. And I believe neurolanguage learning is one of those ticks, that are helping us to invite this new way of learning in our society. So do you feel this is happening all over, worldwide, or it is just in few countries? What's your perspective in regards to globalization in this, method of learning in a different way? Is this happening everywhere?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think learners and teachers are frustrated. And I think learners and teachers are frustrated with the institutions. And again, I'm not being critical or negative. The problem with a lot of institutions and educational systems is the bureaucracy, the heaviness. And, many times they're calling in educational consultants who are not hands-on teachers. They're consultants. So, it's like the educators, I think all of the educators want change. And that's what I'm sensing. I train teachers worldwide, and now we are 550 more or less neurolanguage coaches worldwide. And all of those teachers worldwide want that change. And I actually personally believe that the more that the teachers change individually, little by little, we will be able to come into the systems and help the systems to change. Because what we are, if you think of an enormous dinosaur, that's what we're trying to move.
Absolutely. It's a huge one.
Absolutely. And, technology has had that shift. Telecommunications has had that shift. Pharmaceuticals have had that shift. And now it's the time for the educational systems. But the problem is as well, and I say problem, the real point is that, how we want to live, how we want to really create a better world really depends on the educational systems that we have worldwide, because that's, especially when we're dealing with children. And education is key. It's how and what knowledge we bring into our brains. And the more we can shift education into the world of today, absolutely, we can start creating a different world for today. We really can. And language is key. We have so much technology. We have apps, instant translation. We've got Elon Musk trying to connect us into the computers with the brain, interfacing our brains. It's all fantastic stuff. But, in the end, we are wired to be social. We're wired to be human. We are human. And to live that human experience means we need to connect with each other. The brain is wired to connect. We are social beings. And the tool that we connect with is communication and language. And therefore, I absolutely think that we need to be promoting languages much, much more. And helping people to learn languages much, much more.
Absolutely. So the way you promote neurolanguage, it works for any language, right? Not just English.
Absolutely. Neurolanguage coaching is it is about having the knowledge of how the brain functions, how the brain learns, bringing that knowledge to the learner. We're not trying to be neuroscientists. We're trying to be realistic laymen dealing with our own brains. And the biggest point is that each and every one of us is different. Every brain is different. Yes, we have the same basic functions, but how we interpret life, how we react is totally different for everybody. And when you have an educator that respects those differences and tolerates them and encourages the individual, it's a totally different learning process. And, a lot of people say, well, neurolanguage coaching, is it a method? Is it an approach? What is it? And for me, it's about embracing everything. It's you really can embrace all the methods, because we are sitting in front of a learner and saying to the learner, okay, what's going to work for you? And what may work for that learner may be different for another learner and different for another learner. And we're personalizing, we're individualizing, but we're bringing out the expertise of all different methods in the background.
I love the way you said it's all about being personalized, right? And yes, indeed, we are all different. So the more we understand how to work, individually with people and respect their individuality, the more results we're gonna have with the learners. So that's why I'm so in love with this subject, because I think this is really mind-blowing, and this is really gonna shake the way how institutions see language learning, and it's time for it, right? As you said,
yes.
I love the way you said we are connected. Our brain is connected to be social, right? We are meant to be social.
Absolutely.
And the language connects us. And I am just so into this cause, Rachel, because English changed my life. I was a simple girl from the countryside of São Paulo, and when I had the chance to go to England and meet so many people from so many different places, my mind just was like, whoa, like so many cultures and so many different ways to live and to carry a life. So you start questioning things that you wouldn't question if you were just there in your little village, right? So once you start connecting with people, your brain starts to make different connections and different synapses. And it gives us a bigger, a wider variety of possibilities about what is life for you. So I think this is why this is so amazing, but most of all, just so important and urgent.
Yes.
And you were in Brazil last year, right? You were also connecting with some Brazilian teachers. Would you like to share your experience? How was it in Brazil?
Oh, phenomenal. Phenomenal. I visited various countries in South America last year, and I have feel safe or this or that. Honestly, it was fantastic. I felt great. I really felt safe. The people were wonderful. It was phenomenal. It really was. And the group of Neurolanguage coaches in Brazil, I'm going to say they are on fire. They are really into helping people to learn, finding out what works for each and every person, and really personalizing this process. And that's what I do think, that we are moving into an educational process now, which is going to have to come into personalized people. We have so many learners with, I was going to say problems, but I don't want to say that they're problems. I'm going to say with differences. Because we are labeling people, and people are feeling bad about a learning process, and we have to stop labeling people. It's not about somebody having an issue. It's about me, the educator, not being able to understand that person. And maybe that person needs something to keep their attention, or maybe that person needs to do physical activity when learning, or, it is about understanding. Discourse and the Socratic.
Rachel, your connection. Oh, sorry, your connection was just chopping. Oh, I think
know.
Now you're back.
Yes, now I'm back. So I was saying that, through history, if we look back, we really started in the Roman and the Greek eras with Socratic discourse, getting people to think for themselves. Socrates used to bite his lip to keep quiet. And then I think we had that Victorian influence from the British Victorian, the learner is quiet, the learner is nobody, the teacher is everything, and the learner does what the teacher says. And this is what we have to now move away from again, and come back into that Socratic stimulation.
It's all about stimulation. The brain needs stimulation to learn better, right? In a curious state, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what we're doing is we're killing curiosity. And we know that, you know, we have so many little statements saying school kills curiosity, school kills development. Well, we know that, but we're not changing it.
Exactly.
But no, may I say, let's just correct that. There are some amazing schools worldwide that are.
But they are just not the majority, right?
Not yet.
Yet.
But that's where we're heading. We're heading towards that. And definitely it is about, I think it's about staying positive and not criticizing the past. You know, everything is perfect. We've done what we've done in the past. We've learned from the experience. We've had some great methodologies. We've still got some great stuff. And it's about now embracing everything and understanding as a teacher how we, firstly, how we can change, how we can understand the brain, and then how we can help others to do the same.
Amazing. And I am very optimistic about it.
Me too. Absolutely.
Rachel, I've read your book, which is Brain-Friendly Grammar. And it's amazing the way how you put those information together. And I would like to know if you want to share with us, I mean, why did you write this book and the effectiveness of approaching grammar in a brain-friendly way?
Thank you for talking about the book. Firstly, I do want to say to all the listeners, you know, I'm really grateful that all of you are there. Joao, you're saying that we are changing. Yes, you are. You know, a lot of teachers out there are intuitively changing. Definitely. Now, I actually wrote the Brain-Friendly Grammar book second. So the first one was about Neurolanguage Coaching, and the second one was this question of how can we transform the grammar learning process? And I think many of us are traumatized by the grammar learning process at school and with teachers. You know, the traditional teacher coming in with grammar. I have to say that, you know, for me, how many times do we stand in that learning process as a learner and we really feel bad, we really feel stupid, we really feel, oh my God, I can't get this. And many, many times as a teacher, we don't realize that we are actually making our learners feel bad. So for me, it's that question of, whenever I'm with a learner, how can I avoid that feeling ever comes out? I want that learner to be interacting with me. You know, we have that wonderful Benjamin Franklin quote, involve me and I will learn. So it's about the teacher actually stopping being a teacher. We have to stop talking at people and we have to start talking with. And this means we have to come into, especially with grammar, I would say to lose the books and come into that very brain-friendly coaching conversation where we are quietly interacting, we're arousing curiosity, and I am trying to understand how to get you, my learner, into this grammar fast. And do it and use it and feel it and live it so that you've instantly got it. That's what we're trying to achieve.
This is revolution.
It is revolution. It is. And I have to say, you know, that the ones that are doing this training with me, and they really are doing this, we are transforming that learning process because we have, you know, this morning I was with some of the teachers training with me, and we could have been hours talking about grammar, and they were excited. I was excited. We were curious. I was the French learner. We were doing French, and it was phenomenal. You know, we were having fun. Amazing. And we've got learners having fun with grammar because what we're doing is we're creating patterns, we're creating connections, we're getting them to be stimulated, we're asking them, how is this in your language? Let's compare it. I mean, it's phenomenal. It really is.
It needs to be fun.
It does. It does. And then when we've talked about it, then I would say to the learner, okay, now come into the books, go and do some exercises, play with it, and then come back and tell me how it was, and then you can use all those wonderful materials that we have. But firstly, it's that dialogue and interaction.
That's key, absolutely. This is a very key ingredient. And Rachel, how many languages do you speak?
Io non falo português.
Não fala nem
Não falo português. Pouco de português. I actually speak Spanish, French, Catalan, Italian, German. I'm learning Russian, so I would say I can speak baby Russian. Yes. I can understand Portuguese, and yes, I hope to really increase my Portuguese over these next years, definitely. And obviously, the more I come to Brazil, the more I hopefully will be absorbing.
Any intentions to come to Brazil soon?
It could be. Let's wait and see. There might be something in the pipeline. I'm not going to promise anything just in case, but
looking forward to having you here anyway.
Yes.
But coming back to the languages you speak, I really wanted to know how did you manage? I mean, so many people struggle with learning English. It's just one language. It is, I mean, in general, in my opinion, a quite fairly easy language to learn. But you learned more than one, not just one language, but several languages. So could you please share with us how did you do it, and what was the key ingredients? If they want to learn more than one language, would you advise them to, go to a special path or some tips to it?
Firstly, I have to say that, I never had that focus in life to be a linguist and to learn so many languages. For me, it just happened. And it was quite curious how it happened. And I learned French, Latin and Greek at school.
Yes.
And in a very school process, I used to hate Latin and Greek, although now I look back and I think, wow, that was so useful as a structure, as a introduction into language. But, as a child, nobody explained that to us. Mm-hmm. Nobody explained this is going to be the key for languages, So, when I was 15, I actually met my future husband in Spain, and I actually taught myself Spanish. Never had a lesson in my life. I started writing letters to him, and he started writing back to me, and that's how I learned. I took my father's Teach Yourself Spanish books, and I really started to write letters, receive letters, translate, and that's how I learned. And then
you had a special reason.
I did. I was extremely motivated, high motivation. And at the age of 17, I actually moved to Spain to live. And in those days, I've moved back now, yes. I mean, we're talking about 30-something years ago. I'm really talking about the years in the 1980s when I moved to Spain. And in those years in Inamara, there was no technology, there was no telephone, no internet. I didn't have a telephone at home, so I hardly spoke English. Mm-hmm. I maybe spoke English 2 or 3 times a year. Mm-hmm. And then I started teaching it, so I was only speaking when I was teaching.
Right.
And living in Catalonia, I started absorbing Catalan. The television is one of the greatest tools to learn a language with. Passive intake is phenomenal. When I left Spain in 1995, I went back to England. I did some more studying. I really took 10 years to do a lot of studying, a lot of research. And then when I actually finished those studies, I went to Germany to live and work, and at the same time I was offered a job at the University of Verona in Italy.
Wow.
And that's when I started my double life between Germany and Italy, commuting. And I started to speak Italian very quickly because I was able to transform the French, Spanish, and Catalan into Italian.
Yes.
And I remember having a problem with German and thinking, what's the reason that I can't get into German? And then I started to come into the Germanic side of English.
Phrasal verbs.
That helped me. Absolutely. Phrasal verbs, irregular verbs. There are so many similarities, you know, it's unbelievable. But if you don't open that sort of window in the brain doesn't see it. So when you start to connect, that's when it starts to get easier.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. So life experience has taken me to learn those languages, and I'm very grateful to that experience in life. And now I'm trying to get into my Russian. I would like to get into some Greek. I'd like to get into some Portuguese. And I'm like, yes, languages.
And I can see this is a real passion. And
Yes.
As you mentioned, if the brain is, you know, in the right state and in the curiosity state, as you mentioned, you are able to do it. It's just a matter of coming out of this fear, you know, exposing yourself and dealing with your insecurities.
Yes.
So I think really this is the first step, because in general, I tell my students, guys, English is easy. You know, we can just read some text and just, you know, break down the grammar and then work on your pronunciation. English is easy. The most difficult part is the mental game, you know, just, you know, really facing your fears and your struggles, and you have to be in touch with things that you don't know. Otherwise, you're not gonna stretch and be out of your comfort zone. So there is no point, you know, of just reading a text that is easy for you, or just being close to someone that speaks, you know, a poor kind of English. You just have to stretch, and this is gonna be difficult. You're gonna have to face your fears. So in general, I think this is one of the biggest issues we have to face. And in regards to this subject, Rachel, there are some people here perhaps that they do fear, you know, speaking and connecting to people in English. They might have opportunities to speak, maybe at work, maybe traveling, but they just don't give themselves this opportunity because something inside just get them stuck, you know. Would you approach this with us today, you know, telling us how work, you know, with this and look at it from a brain perspective, and what actually happens in our brain when we get stuck and when we fear, you know, new situations, especially when we are speaking in English or in another language with someone. Would you enlighten us on this subject, please?
Honestly, I think the secret of life is repetition and normalizing. And, you know, when we say normalizing, if the brain is doing something that is not normal for the brain, or it's new, or we haven't done it enough, the brain is reticent. It doesn't want to do it because the brain isn't feeling secure. We don't have it as a program. One of the major tasks of the brain is to create programs. And if we think about it, everything we do, we get up in the morning and we have those automatic programs running. You know, we go and make coffee, we go and make breakfast. We're not thinking about making coffee. We're thinking about the day. We're running on programs. And the secret is to get something into a program. Look at pilots. They go into the simulator every 6 months so that they have that automatic programming of emergency situation, or whatever happens in that airplane, they can handle it.
Yes.
And they have to do that. They have to get those automatic responses going. So the secret of life is to normalize activity and really get it into a program. Now, one of the major problems with languages is that we don't do it enough. And we have to do it enough so that the brain is normalized in that situation.
Repetition.
And yes, that's right. So it's like driving a car. You have to do it enough times. You have to keep going. And one of the major problems with languages is there is so much of it. So I do think in a learning process, we have to become more focused. We have to become more focused into the essentials of the grammatical side and the essentials for that learner. What does that learner need to say? What type of conversations? Who are they with? Where are they? Let's analyze all of those conversations and let's get you doing those conversations over and over and over again. And practice makes perfect. And I think as well, it's about getting into that feeling of feeling safe. Safe enough to make mistakes, safe enough to even laugh at yourself. There's many times when I come out with bad pronunciation or I come out with the wrong word, especially in Italian, because I have very Spanishified Italian. Mm-hmm. And my Italian friends, they know me very well. And they, you know, I always know when I say a Spanish word because they look at me as if I'm an alien. And then I realize, okay, it was a Spanishified word. Let me try and find the Italian. And it's just about getting that calm brain where we accept ourselves.
Yes.
And we, you know, being with somebody, that person will always appreciate that we want to communicate with them. And just communicating in somebody's language is, you know, it's Nelson Mandela says, you know, speak to somebody in their own language and you're opening up their heart.
Yes.
And
I
it's
love
so
that.
true.
Yeah, this phrase is powerful.
It is.
And you mentioned something that I think it's so important, Rachel, which is just really focus on the language or the type of vocabulary that you need the most at that moment. Because sometimes when we start learning a new language, I feel like we want to learn everything, right? Just tell me everything. And people have a misconception about what fluency means. So they just say, okay, you know, I want to learn English with you because I want to be fluent. I'm like, okay, what does fluency means for you? Because, you know, there are so many different types of vocabulary. I mean, there might be some vocabulary for lawyers or for engineers or for even, you know, people that works, you know, with airplanes and pilots. You know, there's so much to learn. Yeah. So, you know, just getting, you know, to understand what fluency means. That's the first thing for you. Yeah. So fluency for me is I want to travel to that country, when and where, you know, and be able to communicate at a restaurant or, I don't know, just shopping around. This might be fluency for you, for what you need. Or maybe you want to get a specific job. So there is an interview you need to go through. So let's focus on that. Yes. So yeah, this is just really a very important point you mentioned. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Bringing in the focus. And as you say, fluency is different for everybody. Everybody has, I'm going to say, special conversations that they want to come into. But then, as language specialists, we also understand that there are certain repetitions in language, like giving opinions, giving explanations, asking questions. You know, there's basic skeleton language that we as experts could be also bringing in to get people focused into the type of language that they need.
Yes.
And this is where our expertise really helps people to focus in. And this is where we come into focused goals, personalized goals.
Yes.
And if I can, I just seeing Cruz, Joanna Cruz, you're saying about practicing conversation. Honestly, I would connect with friends that are Anglo speaking and you know, try to build up some social connections where you're meeting a group of friends, you're able to speak in English, even with your own friends, even with family. You know, I've got families who maybe have a day where they speak in English together and they make it a fun day. And it's funny because maybe they're not perfect, it doesn't matter. The point is the brain switching languages. The more that we train the brain to switch from language to language, the more versatile and the faster the brain gets.
Yes, absolutely.
It's training. Everything is about brain training.
It's about physical training. If you want to run a marathon, you know, you're going to have to work on it. Or if you want to play an instrument, you know, you're going to have to be there, maybe the piano. You're not just going to do it once or twice or 3 times. You have to practice. You have to go there every day for a couple of hours if you want to be good at it. So
yes.
I really like this analogy, you know, with languages and working out. That's the first.
Yes.
Working out and instruments. I think they're all about abilities, and it all requires training and repetition. So,
yes, absolutely. And just looking at Sara Soare, preciso estudar molto. No, honestly, no, you don't need to study a lot. And this is again, I think it's a misconception with language learning. Let me, if I can, be a little bit provocative for the learners out there. Inamara, you know, you've heard me say this before. There is an American program, it's a US military program, and they have an accelerated learning program, and they are getting people to learn a language in 6 weeks.
Whoa, does that work?
Now, well, I've no idea, because obviously I can imagine it's a top secret program. Okay. But from what I understand, it is the subconscious input into the brain. Now, I think this is very, very interesting because, you know, as children, we learn a language subconsciously. Mm-hmm. When we're growing up, in those first 5 or 6 years, we learn, we absorb the language. And as adults, we think that we have to study a lot. Yes, we have to study, and yes, we can study, but passive input, exposure to the language is absolutely essential. Yeah. Now there is a polyglot. I'm trying to remember her name. Lydia Markova. Mm-hmm. She has learnt, I think, 5 languages fluently and another 2 languages. Those 7 in total. And she explains that she learned it by watching her favorite series, Friends. Wow. So just by watching the TV, taking the language in, you know, we absorb so much. And this is the part that we forget as adults. Mm-hmm. And even if you're not listening actively, that you're just, it's in the background, the subconscious brain is hearing it, but you're not paying attention to it, is also effective. Mm-hmm. Interesting. I'm all about exposure, because I think if you don't really read or listen, because that's how English comes in, right? I always say input and output. So yes, I find it hard to do your output, which is writing and speaking, if you can't really read or listen to things properly. So in general, I like to do around average 70% input for 30% output. So if you want to have a really impressive output, you need to have, like, you know, to double, you know, your exposure to the language. And yes, I don't know, I just feel like when I do it with the text, when I follow the text with the audio, I feel more confident when, you know, I know that what I'm having on my input. But what you're saying, it's just about hearing, even if it's in the background. So that's new for me. I'm not sure how I would put that, you know, in a method or something, but it's good to know that it works in somehow, and there are people that do it. Yeah, and it's not about putting it in a method. It's about actually, you know, learners come to us and we work together with learners. And what we're trying to do is encourage learners to go away and expose their brain to the language as much as possible. Reading. I had clients who literally, one client called Thomas, never forget, he used to come out with the most amazing vocabulary. And I used to say, Thomas, where did you get that from? And he'd say, oh, it was that book. Or this book. He would only read in English. Amazing. Wow. And then you have I remember when I was living in Spain, the television, you know, just things that I'd pick up and I'd think, well, where did I get that? And then I'd realize from the TV. So it's phenomenal that, I mean, the TV, you can love it and hate it. If you take it as an educational linguistic tool, it's fantastic.
Yes, absolutely.
It really is. It is.
True. It's true.
And we have the proof, because, you know, the Dutch and the Swedish, they are ingrained in English because they have English television. And as children, they are watching English television.
Yes, their English is so good. I've met some
phenomenal.
And I was really impressed. It was like people, like they were really young and they were polyglots. And I was like, come on, let me know, what did you do? Because I was struggling with English when I first came to England in 2007. I had the amazing opportunity to meet those people. And I was like, really young people, like 17, 18, 20 years old. And they could speak their language, native language, English, and sometimes another third or fourth language. So young. And I was feeling, come on, I must be doing something really wrong here. And then I had the chance to understand a bit more how they do. But yeah, those people up north, they're really good with that. Yes.
Yes. Just imagine if we had more countries where children are exposed to English.
Yes.
And I'm not encouraging television, I'm just encouraging language, you know?
Yeah, input. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
Yeah. It's always so inspiring to speak to you, Rachel. I mean, I love talking about it.
The brain is just awesome. I think we don't give each other enough recognition of how awesome each and every one of us really are. Everybody has the most amazing brain. So yes, and Carolison is asking if I lived in Germany. Yes, I lived in Germany for many, many years. I am Carolina Soto. Yes, it's the same idea with the radio, just the radio in the background. Absolutely have that BBC going and going and going, even if you're not listening. Absolutely, yes. It's exposure. It's, as we said, it's normalizing the brain and exposing the brain to the habit of the language so that it's taking it in and then speaking and just practice. Yes.
I totally agree. Rachel, usually when I do live sessions here on Instagram, it only allows me maximum for 1 hour. So just to let you know that once it starts to count, you know, almost in the end, the clock starts ticking and it starts a countdown. So
okay.
I know it's gonna start in a minute because we are almost an hour here speaking.
Wow.
Already an hour. Well, it's almost 9 and almost 8, and for you almost midnight.
It is. It is my midnight. Yes.
So 2 things. First, I don't want it to start counting down and we have to finish like quickly. I want to have a proper finish, and also I don't want to take your time. I know it's really, really late and you had a really busy day, but just for us maybe to have a finish and a conclusion, I wanted to ask you if you could please explain to the audience the difference between language teaching and language coaching. What's your point of view on this, and anything else you want to add to them that you think would be, you know, valuable to them?
Yes. Well, maybe just quickly clarify language teaching, language coaching, and what we do is neurolanguage coaching. So even a difference between language coaching and neurolanguage coaching.
True.
I do think teaching is very much ingrained in a directive style, the teacher telling what to do, the teacher leading. You know, teachers are changing nowadays intuitively. And that's where I do think a lot of teachers are now coming into coaching intuitively. And coaching is about listening to the learner, following the learner, and really promoting that autonomy and following a coaching process. Goal setting, action setting, motivation, engagement, commitment, process, and managing that process. Now, when you come into neurolanguage coaching, what we do is we add the additional dimension of the neuroscience, because we're really understanding how the brain blocks, how the brain reacts, how the brain learns. Just those basic understandings will actually totally transform the learning process. And everything that we do as a neurolanguage coach has in mind the brain. So the whole structure, the whole process, everything is for a reason to make it much more brain friendly and more effective, potentially faster. And really, I mean, it just transforms the learning process. It really does. You know, and I think, obviously I'm biased because I created it, but when I see so many neurolanguage coaches out there having such an impact on the learning process, we have so many happy learners out there, it's like, wow. And I always say, I say it to all of you, the best feedback is from the learner.
Absolutely. And how many years have you been doing this? For how long?
I have been actually teaching. I started when I was 17, so it's over 30 something years. I'm not going to tell everybody how old I am. But the neurolanguage coaching, I started in this topic 20 years ago when I first got to Germany, and I was at a school that said they did language coaching, and I asked them, well, what is it? And they couldn't give me an answer. They didn't know. There was nothing crystallized, nothing created. So I developed myself as a life coach. I did a lot of training, a lot of years integrating it into language with my clients, trying to understand what works, what doesn't. I went into the neuroscience. And in 2012 is when I really crystallized the concept of neurolanguage coaching. And it's now 8 years that I'm training teachers worldwide into becoming neurolanguage coaches.
So it's quite recent, but at the same time, so effective. And also, you have all the accreditation, right, from the ICF.
That's right.
I think
That's
it's also
right.
important to mention.
Yes.
It's not just something that came out of the blue. You know, there are some really serious studies in regards to this.
Absolutely.
And also really serious neuroscientists that you follow and help you in your work, right? So
Absolutely.
there is a serious background. That's what I want to clarify.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Inamara, I am nearly at the end. Over this last year, I've been doing a master's in applied neuroscience. So I have, at the moment, I'm just finalizing and doing my final work, and
Well
hopefully in
done.
the next few months I will get that. But yes, I mean, you know, there's a lot of, obviously the accreditation by the International Coach Federation. We are one of the first worldwide to do this and to get this. And definitely for me, it's about the standards and the service and being cost effective and getting the results. And we are changing that washing machine cycle. We don't want the learners in the washing machine. We want them out of the washing machine, in the dryer, on the line, in the street, out in life, getting on with their lives. And as you've said, you know, language impacts life.
Oh, yeah.
And I know a lot of people in South America, when you've got that door with language and English especially, it opens doors all over the world.
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Well, I am approve of that. You too. How language had a massive impact in our lives. And congratulations on your masters. You are a real inspiration.
Nearly, not yet. Nearly.
Almost there. I mean,
Yes.
I'm already considering it because you are putting in practice everything that you're learning. And thank you for sharing, you know, all this knowledge and all this serious researches and studies and connecting, you know, all these amazing people and neuroscientists and specialists all over to, you know, put this method together, this approach together, and now spreading and training so many teachers all over the world. I mean, you have teachers trained where? In Russia, in Brazil, in Ukraine,
Actually,
everywhere, right?
64 countries all over the world.
64 countries.
And in Inamara, some of them are actually coming into teaching children as well and coaching children. And that is phenomenal because they're also changing children's lives and changing the way that children come into languages. It's like, yes.
This is so powerful. This is a huge impact. And I'm really grateful to be part of this mission, you know, because I'm really into this cause. So, yes, if people want to know more about your work, about your books, where do they find you?
Well, the website, www.neurolanguagecoaching.com. And the book is on Amazon, both of the books, Neurolanguage Coaching and the Brain Friendly Grammar book. They're on the website and on Amazon. In Brazil, we have a distributor for the books as well. So with pleasure, they can connect with me. And we do have a conference in London. We have a conference every year, which is called the Neurolanguage Learning Conference. And this year it will be in London. About the stay in London. I'm hoping to see you there. I'm hoping
to really have a new passport, and I'm doing, you know, my best to hurry with this. But I was last year in Portugal, and it was amazing. I'm amazed. It was a really mind-blowing experience, you know, to connect with so many specialists, and I really I'm gonna make my best to be there with you in May, end of April, beginning of May. And I'm really looking forward to it. Meeting you and meeting amazing people that you're putting us together. You're recruiting us.
Yes, absolutely. Like-minded people are coming together.
Yes.
And it's phenomenal. It really is.
I have to be there. I have to be there. Just like no chance I'm not there. So.
Yes, good. Well, maybe we'll get some listeners as well. Just want to say thank you to all of the listeners. Do connect with us. Inamara, you're also amazing. I know you do some amazing work down there in Brazil and helping a lot of people come into the language, and also being that role model of yes, we can do this, you know, and helping people to see that, yes, they can. Absolutely. Well done.
This is my mission, and I'm really happy to have you with me together. We can do a great work, and you're always an inspiration. And it's good to, you know, have colleagues like you to talk about things I like to talk about. So thank you very much. I'm going to see you soon in our advanced course. So I'll talk to you very soon. Thank you very much.
Bye. Boa noite.
Boa noite.
Boa noite. Ciao.
Bye.